It's past 9. In a landmark moment today, President Cyril Ramaphosa received the G20 Inequality Committee Report on global inequalities, together with Nobel Laureate Professor Joseph Stiglitz and UNAIDS Executive Director Ms. Winnie Byanyima. This is a pivotal moment under South Africa's G20 presidency, and the substance really of the report is likely to set the tone for global debates on equity, debt, health and economic justice ahead of the G20 Summit to be held in Johannesburg later this month. To speak about this more sharply, Dr. Peter Karungu, political economist from Sythecon, joins us now to talk about this. A very good evening to you, Dr. Karungu. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. I'm not sure if you have an inkling or have seen parts of the report or any of it, but I just want to talk about it conceptually at first, just why it's a significant moment, not only for Africa ahead of the G20.
Oh, good evening, and thank you to the listeners. To me, this is the moment all economists who care about humanity have been waiting for. Past inequality has been the greatest threat to human relationships. And if you watch what we are watching today worldwide, geopolitical realignment, extremism in the world, unnecessary wars, ideological alignment, and literally hatred that we had not seen before, the bottom line is nothing less than the global inequality. We said 20 years ago, maybe nuclear war is not a threat to humankind. The threat to humankind is inequality. And that is what we are watching today. Simple statistics literally says the following, and I repeat, as we speak today, 1.5% of the rich people, 1.5% of the population control 48% of the global wealth. That is 2.214 trillion US dollars, literally controlled by 1.5%. I repeat, it's not wrong to have wealth. It's not a crime to have wealth. That's not what we are saying. We're saying the danger of inequality is that if the majority have nothing, the resources, access to health, access to good water, access to sanitation, basic human needs, 3 meals a day. In Africa, even a meal a day becomes literally a privilege. It's not sustainable. Economists say, and I'm one of them who argues, the forces of the market will always put a force that puts people to the where the majority are and not where the minority are, regardless. And that is something that we can debate for a long day. Therefore, this report in its own merit, as I read it, which says, the statistic in that says, I repeat, in 2001, 1% of the top rich people captured, accessed, controlled, and owned 41% of the global wealth within that period. Whereas 50% of the poor got 1%. Now, we and you and anybody who is listening would ask, is that the case? Yes. The danger with that is you cannot deny the fact that in the aspect of human aspiration, in the absence of having the basics, you are denied to even hope, live, and aspire. And that's where the question is.
Okay.
Where are we heading to?
Let me ask then, because I also want to look at where we are, Dr. Karungu. If the report finds that of that the 1%ers, they captured 41% of all new wealth since 2000, while the bottom 50% received only 1%. The question is, what mechanisms in globalization, tax policy, or asset markets have allowed for this divergence?
Yeah, good question. Remember, we talk in fair market, assuming we don't have any form of socialism, assuming we allow the market forces, I repeat, allow the market forces to determine your destiny. It works on one premise, that each and every human being is born to compete on equal playing field. But that's not the case, I repeat. Meaning, if competition were to kick off and 100% or hypothetical, 50% of the people don't even understand what it is to compete, they're already disqualified. Meaning, we need to start thinking whether it is the people who are lazy, which is commonly stated by billionaires and the rich people, or they are not smart, or they are not privileged, or they don't belong, or they are part of this system that they don't believe works. But the question is, every born child in the universe is born to aspire within an environment which she can aspire. So I agree with you that it is very difficult to be able to address, because inequality is not going to be told, you people have more, share with... No. We need to come with the policies that underpin the fact that it is not a crime to put a lot of effort, a lot of asset, a lot of countries worldwide to also come back and say, for them to be close to what we are, or even come close to create a market, then we need to address that as a multilateral institution. It's not you are doing them right. And that's why I find it very difficult when you hear people saying, no, we don't. That's number one. Number two, we need also to say to all of, particularly in the African continent, call it what it is. 30, 40 years ago, barely call it 100 years ago, to go very far, the continent was owned. All the resources were controlled, owned by people who came and found them, but not the people who belonged there. And by the time things changed for them to control, half of was gone, and the people are left deprived in every aspect. And for them now to be told, no, you are poor because you are lazy, that's nonsense. Doesn't work like that. Because you have to put perspective to the reality of the fact that had they not been subjected to that quagmire of subjugation to be nobody except subservient to deliver on the behalf of the masses that knew what they are looking for, then we will not be where we are.
Okay, so
but those debates are not put into the equation the way they should.
So then I want to understand, if we look at things from the prism of, the argument is often made of the Bretton Woods institutions. For instance, the World Bank, their definition of high inequality is a profile of countries that are 7 times more likely to experience democratic decline. And I underline that point because a lot of African or developing countries that are in a debt trap is because of the conditions that are laid down by the international financial institutions. So what type of leadership should South Africa show as G20 president at this moment, that's going to hand over to the United States as president on pushing for greater action against inequality?
You are very right, but go back. All these multilateral institutions were formed in 1945. We call the Bretton Woods timing of trying to discuss how do we stabilize the world after such a war, and make sure that each and every person become as competitive as they were. At that stage, they concentrated more on where the wars were fought. May it be Japan, may it be Germany, may it be other countries that needed to be redressed as such. That's number one. Number two, then were they formed considering the nature of what the poorest countries were going to face or were supposed to be. With all due respect, I would argue, they got accommodated along the line, not being the key in setting the fundamentals that was to be addressed then. That you can take to the bank, because otherwise we would not have had all these wars of colonialism, bitter terrorism worldwide, because at that stage those issues would have been addressed. It's very difficult to bring into issues of mankind after the fact, but that's the time then. But over the time, this multilateral institution have tried to accommodate with respect what they are unable to address, because you cannot be able to pinpoint the policy that you implement elsewhere without having the indigenous element of it being accommodated by the people you are addressing. That's one of the weaknesses. However, not that being said, I must say that it became very, very difficult for the world now to be able to come and say, the multilateral institution, we have failed, let's do ABCD, number one. Number two, yes, the Cold War kind of polarized the world, and then the issues were not addressed because it became, where do you belong? Are you communist? I'm giving you a little bit of the history of what has transpired. But in the main, the fact is that the outcome is what we are watching, meaning the multilateral institutions have failed, the politicians have failed, our governments have failed, the situation in the world is worse off today than it was 20 years ago. Our children are more afraid now even to go to Europe, or them to come to Africa, or them to go to Asia, because humanity has become very, very... I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying.
No, I do. It's just that we have run out of time, Dr. Karungu, okay. And I do think there is certainly space to flesh out these issues in greater detail and spend more time on the individual points that you're raising, and we will do that with you during the G20 Summit as it gets underway or is underway. Thank you very much, political economist Dr. Peter Karungu, just speaking to us about that report that was handed over to President Cyril Ramaphosa, the G20 Inequality Committee Report on Global Inequalities.